Watching Will Smith all those years allowed us to learn how to be him. We grew up watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a loud, funny, seemingly lighthearted 90s sitcom, during the exact years we were figuring out who we were gonna be. We learned how to handle embarrassment, rejection, and the kind of pain that doesn't resolve cleanly. Every week the same answer came back. Make it funny, keep moving. We thought it was just Will's personality, but looking back, it's something closer to a survival strategy. One so effective it fooled everyone in the room, including us, including the people watching at home who were quietly building the same walls without realizing that's what they were doing. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wasn't really about a funny kid from Philly adjusting to a rich family in Bel Air. It was about a kid using humor to avoid the most painful facts of his life. And it took one scene from a season 4 episode called Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse for the whole facade to come apart. Will's father comes back, makes a promise, and then breaks it. And Will Smith stands in the middle of the bank's living room and says 6 words with absolutely nothing behind them. How come he don't want me? No punchline, no recovery. We didn't misunderstand this scene. We misunderstood the 4 seasons of television prior that made it possible. And maybe, if we're being honest, we misunderstood what we were absorbing while we watched. So think back to how we first found this show. After school, living room, theme song as a reflex. We knew every word before we ever consciously learned it. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was comfort food. Bright, loud, funny. Will teased Carlton. Hillary said something absurd. Jazz got thrown out of the house. Again and again. Conflict, chaos, resolution, credits. That's the contract sitcoms make. The laugh track trained us. The 22-minute structure trained us. Problems got solved before the next commercial break, and everyone went home fine. But here's what was actually happening underneath that contract. Every time Will made us laugh, we were being conditioned. To read his humor as confidence, to see the deflections as charm, to accept the defense mechanism as a personality type. Those sitcoms didn't just entertain us, they showed us what handling things was supposed to look like, and a lot of us took that seriously and literally. At the center of this episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and when you look at this scene closely, is what separates it from almost everything else that era produced. Children who grow up with absent or emotionally unavailable parents often land on the same strategy. Make people laugh and nobody asks hard questions. Keep the energy moving and nobody looks too closely. Stay in performance long enough and the wound stays hidden, sometimes even from yourself. Psychologists call this affect regulation through humor. The rest of us just called it personality. Never questioned it much further than that. That's Will Smith in this show, a kid who grew up without his father and turned into the funniest person in any room he walked into. That's not a coincidence. All of this was wrapped in a laugh track and broadcast to millions of kids who were, without knowing it, developing the same response to similar pain. And 90s television writing gave that response every possible reward. On a sitcom, emotional deflection doesn't just register as damage. It registers as entertainment. The laugh track approves it. The structure validates it. What's happening here is a format telling its audience week after week, this is what capable looks like. This is what fine looks like. We were never meant to look underneath. Will's entire presence on this show is management. Always working, constantly teasing Carlton to maintain the social distance, avoiding Uncle Phil's more direct moments, even the chaos, the schemes, the things he pulls that disrupt the household that ran perfectly before he arrived. It's all motion. Don't stop, don't let anything real catch up. The comedy isn't accidental. It's a job. Keep everyone laughing so nobody asks real questions. Uncle Phil, played by the late and incredible James Avery, sees through it. There are moments across the series where Uncle Phil looks at Will with something the scene doesn't quite call for. Patience, maybe? Or something a little like grief. Like a man watching someone carry a weight they won't put down, waiting for the moment they finally might. Will never quite lets himself get there, because that would mean admitting the weight exists. The show's rhythm reinforced this every single week. Problem appears, Will deflects, audience laughs, episode closes. 4 years of that cycle. We watched it and called it entertainment, which it was. We just didn't clock what else we were watching. In this episode, Will's estranged father, Lou Smith, played by Ben Vereen, arrives the way absent parents tend to arrive. Full of energy, full of presence, trailing the suggestion that things could be different this time around. Will lights up, and this is actually where the episode begins breaking things, before the famous moment even gets close. We can watch Will drop every protective reflex and just want to matter to the one person whose absence has been sitting underneath everything, whether he's ever said that out loud or not. Lou doesn't just show up with an apology, he shows up with energy and plans, which is a very specific kind of move. The kind that makes the kid feel like maybe the waiting was worth it. The plan is a road trip, just the two of them, catching up on time lost. Will, full of excitement, brags to his cousins, hangs on Lou's every word, starts building the trip in his head into something larger than a road trip, a restructuring, almost, of the whole story he's carried about himself. Developmental psychologists have a name for this pattern: approval-seeking behavior in the context of parental abandonment. Age doesn't fix it. Understanding the situation rationally doesn't fix it. Something in the brain formed early is still running old code, still reaching towards the person who was supposed to be there. The swagger is still on the surface, but underneath it, for the first time in 4 years of the show, there's a kid who got left. Lou half answers questions, drifts off topic at the right moments. His commitment to the trip stays just vague enough that it only looks like vagueness after the fact. Will doesn't catch it. He doesn't want to. The episode just holds us there, in that space between what Will needs and what we can already see coming, until there's no more room left. So here's the moment. This scene from the episode Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse, one of the most iconic scenes in 90s television. Lou cancels, moves towards the door. Will doesn't break immediately. The armor is always first. He starts working, makes excuses for his father, says it's fine, picks up speed, fills the silence the same way he has always filled it. Not because there's something to say, but because silence is the thing that lets the mask slip. Then the words stop working. Lou is at the door, one more hollow promise on the way out, and Will just go still. No performance, no angle. A person in a room watching a door close, holding something that can't be turned into a bit. The persona tries to come back. Will says something sharp, something that almost sounds like him, but there's nothing behind it now. And Uncle Phil hears that, and so do we. Then Will turns to him. The funny kid from Philly, the one who always had an angle, standing there with nothing. How come he don't want me? 6 words, no performance underneath them. Not because this is the saddest thing that's happened to Will. Sad things happened before. But because the person he'd spent his whole life performing for just left again. And this time, there was no way to make that mean something different. There's no audience left to play to. The job stopped working. Sit with what the structure of the show was doing to us during those years. The laugh track kept saying charming, confident, fine. Will's deflections got rewarded every single week. The armor held. The funny kid won. And a lot of us were learning from that, more than we knew. We'd already become the one who finds the bit inside the pain, who performs okay so thoroughly that we start losing track of what okay actually feels like. In this episode, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air stopped teaching that lesson and showed us what it had been covering up that entire time. Rewatch the scene knowing all of this. The most important person in the room was never Lou. Lou is just the thing that finally breaks the mechanism, what the whole series had quietly been building towards. What matters is what Uncle Phil does in the moment the armor comes off. He doesn't speak, doesn't resolve anything, he crosses the room and hugs him. That hug is carrying 4 seasons of something that was never announced or explained. Every argument that had something else underneath it, every look that held more than the scene required, every moment Uncle Phil could have written this kid off and didn't. Will is staring towards the door that his dad just used to exit from his life once more, while Uncle Phil is staring towards Will and deciding, without a word, that this kid is his. That image is the whole series compressed into a single gesture. We almost missed it because the way sitcoms were built had trained us to watch the performer, not what was underneath the performance. Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse aired in the spring of 1994 into a primetime landscape with a specific, unspoken rule. If you can make it funny, you're fine. 90s network television enforced that rule constantly. Young characters with quick reflexes and quicker mouths got coded as healthy, capable, and together. The sitcom format held that up as the model. Most of us clocked out of those episodes laughing. We didn't notice what else we were taking home. What this episode did quietly and without announcing it was refuse. A young black man on network television, one that 4 years of primetime sitcom structure had made into a symbol of unflappable cool, completely unable to perform his way through something real. No clean lesson, no restored equilibrium, a hug and grief that doesn't resolve before the credits. For everyone already running Will's strategy, this was something rare. Television looking at the cost. The clip still circulates online. Every few months, a new wave of people, most of whom never watched the original run, sit with this viral TV moment like it's the first time. Most of them share it without fully knowing why. Because what it's touching isn't really nostalgia. It's recognition. Not, I knew someone like Will, but more like, oh, that's what I've been doing. The one who always had an answer, except for the question that actually mattered. Who performed okay so consistently that it stopped being a performance and started just being how things were. This scene keeps finding people because it's one of the very few times mainstream entertainment has been straight about the exchange. Here's what the humor protects. Here's what protecting it costs. And here's what happens when it stops being enough. Watching Will Smith all of those years allowed us to learn how to be him. We borrowed his timing, practiced the deflections, used what the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air packaged as charm the same way he did, to keep the distance manageable, to keep the questions from landing, and to keep the room laughing. For a long time it worked, until it didn't. That's what sits underneath this episode. Not the grief of one scene, but the question of what happens when the strategy that kept us safe finally stops working. When someone sees through it anyway. When someone just gets up. And here's what everyone misses when they talk about this moment. It's not about Lou leaving. Lou leaving is just the setup. Lou had been leaving Will's whole life. This was just a version Will couldn't joke his way around. This scene is about what happens in the 10 seconds after. Lou made promises. Uncle Phil showed up. That's what fathers do. They don't make announcements about it. They don't need credit for it. They just do it. Every time, without being asked. Lou never once managed it. Uncle Phil never once failed to. Will spent 4 years performing for a man who was never really watching. And in this one moment, with nothing left to perform, he finds out that the man who was always watching had already decided, quietly, without any announcement, that this kid was his. That's the scene. That's what it was always about. Not a father leaving, but a father finally presenting himself. That's what those 90s sitcoms always never admitted. And that's what we're going to keep pulling apart here. The shows that raised us, what they were running underneath the laugh track, and what it actually built in us. Because it wasn't just the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Those sitcoms ran the same thing on an entire generation. We have a lot of shows left to look at, and now we know what to look for. That's what Millennial Rewind is here to do. Not to tell us these shows were secretly dark or that our childhoods were more complicated than we thought, but to go back and look honestly at what we were absorbing and why so much of it still feels 30 years later like it belongs to us. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was just the beginning. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.